one of the 4 CPD coordinators that we have at IOSH. And my day-to-day job is essentially helping you guys know exactly what you're doing with your CPD and what to do with Blueprint. So we all know, if you've logged in already, it's a bit of a learning curve and it's a very different way of working compared to what we're used to. So we understand that that's quite a big change. So my day-to-day job is supporting members to understand what these new expectations are and essentially providing hints and tricks to make it as easy as physically possible for you guys. So hopefully today, by the end of this workshop, you'll actually understand what's expected of you and it won't seem such a daunting process anymore. So I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me a second. Okay. So the way that I like to present this workshop is I'm going to go through a brief presentation. It's very brief. I don't want to teach you to suck eggs in terms of CPD. You all know what it is, and I'm sure you've all been doing it for many years. So I'm going to go through this and make it as brief as possible. All about the expectations, the new requirements, and then we'll actually go on to a demo. So I'm going to go on the actual live system on my own Blueprint account, and we're going to see exactly what to do from the moment you first log into Blueprint to essentially what you're going to do at renewal. And I'll talk you through that audit process. I'm sure a lot of you have received emails in the last couple of weeks saying that that audit process is in fact coming in soon. So I'll talk you through that as well. So we all know that we're all on the same page by the end of this and it won't seem such a big task to complete. Okay. So what is CPD? So it's giving competent and up-to-date advice, and it's an essential part of protecting people in the workplace. And it's the responsibility of all occupational safety and health professionals to ensure that they're maintaining their own competence. Completing CPD is a systematic and planned approach to the maintenance, enhancement and broadening of that knowledge, skills and expertise and the competence of professionals throughout their careers. So we're, as IOSH, requiring our graded categories of membership to undertake CPD. IOSH is essentially showing their commitment to the principle that attaining the relevant qualifications is not the end of your learning, and that competence to practice should be regularly developed and reviewed to be a capable and well-rounded occupational safety and health professional. Okay. So the benefits of completing CPD. So as I've previously mentioned, CPD is a structured method of organising those development activities that some of you are actually completing on a daily basis without even thinking about it. So an up-to-date CPD record allows professionals to demonstrate their maintenance and the development of their knowledge and skills to their employers, other professionals and society. Employers have assurance that their team are dedicated to self-development and maintaining standards and competence. This also gives the public confidence that IOSH members of mandatory CPD requirements are professionally competent and are maintaining those professional standards. So on to Blueprint. So we first launched Blueprint in November 2022, and we're still in what we're calling the grace period. So that period between when we launch and when we introduce the CPD audits to check how everyone's getting on and how the changes have been implemented in terms of the CPD that we're seeing. So the main changes we've made, so for those of you that have logged on, I'm hoping lots of people here today have already completed that self-assessment. So we've added the self-assessment tool, the CPD resource library, which is essentially a library of health and safety resources that are available to you that link directly to the results of that self-assessment tool. The CPD record has significantly changed. I'll show you a bit more on that in a moment. And we've added the IOSH ethical practice and OSH e-learning and assessments. Okay, so what is required for your CPD going forwards? So if you are a member that is tech and above, you are required to complete 30 hours of CPD activities over a 12-month cycle. Now that 12-month cycle is your membership year with us. So everyone on here today will have a completely different CPD year. And it basically, as soon as you renew with us, your new CPD year will start and you'll have 12 months to complete those 30 hours. We also expect to see a completed self-assessment, an up-to-date personal development plan, and within those activities that you'll add in, we want to see a self-reflection of the activity itself, but also what benefit has it provided you? Did it provide you any benefit if it didn't? And how have you used that learning actually to benefit your professional practice? So it's not just about saying, I attended X, Y, and Z webinars anymore. It's all about thinking and going back, what did I learn? Is there any more that I could learn? Can the learning that I've done today affect the next process of my planning for next year's CPD? So a bit more on self-reflection rather than just writing down where you went, how long you were there for, and what it was about. Okay. So I'm sure lots of you have seen this circle before. So this is the IOSH competency framework, and this is what Blueprint essentially works from. So it enables members to build and demonstrate their competence as occupational safety and OSH professionals. So essentially it allows you to benchmark yourself against the 12 areas that IOSH have gone away, worked with professionals in industry and found all the skills and knowledge needed to be a well-rounded OSH professional. And they've broke this down into 12 areas. So when you do your self-assessment, it will basically score you against those areas. Now, I use the word score very loosely. It's not a test. It's there to kind of help you see which areas you might want to work on. So if you don't necessarily score highly in something that you feel confident in, that doesn't necessarily mean that the tool is that's what you've got to work on going forwards. If you feel more confident in that area than another, this is just simply there to kind of benchmark yourself against and give our members an idea of what kind of areas they'd like to work on. Okay. So one of the biggest changes, like I said before, is the CPD record. So you're going to use the CPD record to reflect on what you've learned and achieved. And remaining CPD compliant ensures you keep pace with the evolving demands of the OSH profession. So, as I said before, we've asked that you now complete the CPD record in a more in-depth way, which is why we asked for 500 characters in that self-reflection, as opposed to before on our old Skillshare white and green system. All you kind of had to do is pop in what the title of what you've done and just write something. So we've made it slightly more structured now, and we're looking for certain things in particular. But if you're one of our members that gets alarmed as soon as I've said 500 characters, please don't be. I've got a little bit of a trick that I will show you when we do the demonstration to make that a lot easier for you. And this is what the new CPD log looks like. So this is what you're going to see when you're going to update an activity. We'll go into that in more detail as well when we do the actual demonstration. So the IOSH ethical practice in OSH e-learning and assessments were launched as well in November 2022. These are mandatory for our chartered and chartered fellow members. However, anyone has access to them, no matter which membership level you are. So if you are kind of eager to do that learning, then by all means go for it. We encourage it. But it's only mandatory for our chartered and chartered fellow members, and it is required to be recompleted every 12 months in line with that membership. Okay, but if you are one of those members that's either completed it already or are wondering whether it's time to do it again, we have now got a pop-up fitted, which is brilliant on our Blueprint system. So once you are due to retake your ethics assessments, because it's a bit complicated at the moment due to the renewal process and when we're going to start the audit process. So it will flag up with a pop-up to tell you exactly when it's time to reset those. So what I would say is if you have done them since Blueprint's launch, keep your fingers away from your mouse at the moment and it will pop up and realign that for you, okay? And that's what they look like. So they'll be at the bottom of your Blueprint screen. If they're green, fabulous, you've completed them. If they're orange, that's exactly what they should look like with the first time you log in. So orange is they need doing. As you can see, it says not completed, and green is completed essentially. You've got these 3 parts. I would say when I did mine, work through them bit by bit. Probably do one a day rather than sit through the whole thing. They can be quite wordy. It can take quite a while to complete them. And obviously, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we don't kind of want you to sit there and do them all in one go. So by all means, make it fit around your job role. If you have half an hour one day in the office, by all means, do a bit at a time. They don't all need to be completed at once. Okay, so this is a bit of an overview of how Blueprint fits together. So you're going to start off at the first part of our jigsaw, which is assess and plan. So the first time you log in, you're going to fill in that self-assessment, and it's going to kind of advise you which way to complete your CPD. Like I've said before, take the tool with a pinch of salt. If you completely disagree with the results, that's completely fine. Okay, it's not enforced upon you. You don't have to follow that. There's still ways that we can add in your own CPD goals and objectives, but it's just there to guide you. So at the beginning of that year, you're going to have a look and basically form yourself a path that you want to follow in terms of the activities you're going to complete. And then you're going to go away and actually undertake that learning. Okay, so you're going to do the webinars, you're going to identify things you're doing in your role that are new. You've done training, you've undertaken new projects. So you're going to do all that learning, and then you're going to come back and record it. So you're going to pop that all down in your CPD log, whether it's good or bad. And the good thing about the thing we've changed with CPD, we've changed the outlook of you only put in CPD that you benefited from. You only put in formal CPD that you've attended this webinar. You can't just include things in your daily role. That's completely gone. So we want you to be recording good and bad things that have helped you identify something you've learned and how it's improved your professional practice. And if you went to a webinar and it was complete rubbish, you wish you could have your hour back, that's also fine. So we want you to pop that down in your CPD record. Tell us why you didn't necessarily learn something. So say, for example, I wanted to go to a webinar for one subject, and it was advertised as such, and then I went there and I didn't quite get to what I wanted. So what I'm going to do is record that in my log. Say I wanted to learn this, unfortunately I didn't, but I've now gone away and found another webinar which seems much more suitable, so I'll do this going forward to improve my professional practice. So no time is wasted, and it's still going to count towards those 30 hours. And that's the applying and reflecting. So it's always about informing the next stage of your learning, or even highlighting how fabulously amazing you've done. And that's the end of that one. So that's also fine. Okay. And this is our CPD enquiries email address. So I'm hoping someone can pop that in the chat as well. So if you do have any questions for us, some things that might come up today might need to kind of come offline and we can discuss on an individual basis, especially if it's kind of a technical issue you've got. That's our email address. Get in contact with us. There's 4 of us waiting for you to contact us every day. So feel free to contact us on that if you've got any more questions. Okey-doke. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and get my demonstration set up. Bear with me. Sorry, it takes a little while to log back in. Okay. Okay, can you just confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so when you first log into Blueprint, this is what you're going to see. So this is the self-assessment screen. So you're going to have these lovely purple and blue boxes that you're going to work through and answer the questions. Now, we have had a lot of feedback on these since we launched, and in all honesty, they're not relevant to every single role in IOSH, and they're not meant to be. So, as I mentioned before, the IOSH competency framework is based on every single skill or knowledge you could need to work in every role in IOSH. Now, we as health and safety professionals don't work in every role in IOSH, and we don't need all of those skills for our particular job. So that's important to remember. So if, like me, you have absolutely nothing to do with finance, I couldn't even tell you how to order myself a pencil in IOSH. So if I score terribly on the finance section, I'm not particularly going to be that bothered or look at it again because it's not relevant to me. So when I'm answering the questions, what I do is work through it based on my entire career experience. So just because you've moved into a new role and you don't necessarily focus on something anymore, doesn't necessarily mean that you've lost that and you've left that knowledge at the door in your old job and you started your new job with a blank slate. You've still got that knowledge and experience there. So answer it with all of the knowledge that you have and work through it to the best of your ability. If there are sections you think this is not relevant to me at all in the slightest, especially if you are a self-employed consultant, a lot of these questions are worded to work in kind of multi-level companies and bigger companies. Okay, so some of them won't be relevant to you, and it's important to remember that they're not meant to be relevant to you. So what you're going to do is when we get to the next part and you look at it and you think that's why I've scored really lowly, I don't actually do that in my job, that's why. So we're just going to completely disregard it. So don't want anyone to lose any sleep over this self-assessment. It's there to support you more than anything else, okay? So I've completed most of these, blind clicking through them for you just for the purposes of demonstrating. But I'm just going to show you this last one very quickly. So each part comes in two sections. One part is just general questions regarding the role, and then the other part is actually applying it in scenario-based questions. So just click through them. Obviously, I'm hoping when you guys complete it, you'll pay a lot more attention than I am right now. So we're just going to go through. So as you'll see, the toolbar at the top will extend as the closer you get to the end. And then once we've got to the end of this, we should have a completed set of results from our competency framework assessment. So there we go. So we're going to go back to the menu and you'll see that underneath all of these now, we've got completed and it's 100% completed. So all I'm going to do is click next. Okay. And it always does this every time I'm on Zoom. I don't know what it is about this setting. Bear with me. There we go. Right, so this is what you're going to see once you've completed your self-assessment, and this is how you're going to formulate that personal development plan. So like I said, we're going to scroll down and look at the areas that are actually relevant to me. So like I said, I have nothing to do with finance, so we're going to disregard that entirely. But there's lots of different things that won't be necessary to you and your role, and you may score lower than you'd expect. So we're just going to ignore them and choose the ones that are relevant. So there's different levels. So we've got understand, implement, lead, and innovate. Okay, and your actual level will automatically be populated at the top here. So I5, for example, was a chartered member. I just click on chartered, and then your blue column, so where you're aiming to work towards, will be populated in here. But say, for example, you are a certified member and you want to work towards chartered, you can change it on this drop down just so you know which column you should be working towards. Okay, so we are going to go through and just randomly select some of the lower scoring ones. So you will see some half circles if, like me, you've scored lowly in different areas on this particular one. So I'm going to go through and click some of the lower ones. The half circles mean that I've not quite met that level, and they'll only appear in the affiliate one. So that just means that I'm not quite there at what we'd expect to see from an affiliate yet. Maybe you're a student member, maybe that part of the competency framework just is completely not relevant to you. So that's all that means if it's a half circle. Okay. Now, what we would say for your first blueprint year is select 3 or 4 areas. Okay, at the top here, it does say between 6 and 20. However, we're all still getting used to this system. We're all learning that this is a whole new way of working. So we don't want you to overstretch yourself. In that first blueprint year, we want you to kind of look at it as a learning experience in itself. So just pop in 3 or 4 that you find are relevant to you. So all you'll do is scroll down, click ones that you actually want to work on, and then we're going to scroll to the bottom and click next. Okay. So this is pulled through then all those activities we've selected, and then all we're going to do is enter our due dates. Now there is no specific time that we would tell you that you have to complete it by. So if you think you can do something in 3 months, put in a date in 3 months. If you think it's going to take you 3 years to do something, that's fine. Pop in 3 years. This is not something that runs in line with that audit process. It's not this part you don't have to get done in the 12 months. It's a rolling personal development plan that you're going to tick off as you go along once you've completed it. So there's no pressure from us in terms of timeframes. Make it work for you essentially. So I'm going to pop some random dates in there just so we can get through here. And we're going to confirm our development plan and click next. Okay, so you'll see here that those personal development areas have been added to my account. Now I'm just going to go back into this. Now, if you are one of the members that we have had feedback from that absolutely does not like the idea of the competency framework, it doesn't work for them, especially if you're a self-employed consultant. We know that you have your own goals and objectives. So you have to select a minimum of one of the IOSH competency framework areas for Blueprint to essentially work in the background. However, you can add in your own development areas. Okay. So all we're going to do now, it's not going to let me show you this because I've added so many before. I definitely should have deleted these before we logged on. So you'll see at the bottom, these star ones. Now, these are my own personal development areas. So all you're going to do is it'll add to personal development area. It'll come up with a box asking you for a title and a description. Pop that in and save it. And then it will just populate here. So if you don't necessarily like the competency framework ones, or say, for example, you're doing an IOSH this year, a master's this year, you're working on a big project, which you know you want to be the centre of your CPD, we still want you to complete your CPD in a way that works for you, okay? So add those in yourself and focus on them still. We still want CPD to be about you. Just because we've added this tool and just because we've given that extra support in terms for those members that like to do it that way doesn't mean that we've kind of pigeonholed you. By all means, go out and do the CPD that you want to do. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the dashboard. So that's the personal development plan. Now we've got our CPD record here. Now I am going to apologise in advance because I use this for demos all day, every day. So it's a bit of a mishmash and I hope yours is a lot tidier than mine is. Okay, so at the top here, you've got your CPD year. So this is, like I said before, individual to you and it runs in line with your membership renewal. There will be a drop-down menu. So depending on how many years you've been a member of IOSH, you will have previous years of CPD that could go back as far as 2011. You will only have CPD in there from August to 2021. So anything from there onwards will have been transferred from the old system. If for any reason you are one of the members that we've missed contact with, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, where's all my old CPD gone? Get in contact with us at that CPD inquiries email address and we will locate it for you and send you it on an Excel document. That's not a problem. Okay, so underneath here, you've got your 12 months of the year, of your CPD year. And this will basically, it's just a key to keep you on track. So your blue square is essentially where you should be around in the year. And then the green is your completed activities and the orange is pending. Okay. Now I will say, like I say with everything in Blueprint, take it with a pinch of salt. If you're like me and you genuinely update your CPD the month before that it's due with absolutely everything you've done in the year and you run at the last minute, that is perfectly fine. So whatever way works for you, we're not going to log in and check that at 6 months you've done 6 months worth of the CPD. So if you are like me and you're a lastminute.com, perfectly fine. That's not a problem. Or if you're super organised and you like to update it every Friday, also fabulous. So still work in a way that works for you. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and add a CPD activity. Okay. So I am just going to fill this in. So the title, example, is what we're going to use for today. But you're just going to pop in your just a brief name of what it is you're going to complete. And then you're going to select a category. Now, this category function has been added more for IOSH's benefit than yours. So we're going to use this data that you are popping in here to essentially inform our next round of free CPD that we put in the resource library. So when that's being updated at the moment, we've kind of given you a mixed media response to how you all the formats that the resources are in. However, if we find that 90% of our members prefer going to webinars, then obviously we'll start uploading the content in a format that our members actually like to learn with. So that's what that's for. So if something you're doing doesn't necessarily fit exactly into one of these, don't worry, just click it the closest that you can. Okay. So we are just going to click on that. And then we're just going to pop a brief description in here. Now, please make it brief, only because you're about to write 500 characters underneath it. That isn't going to be very brief. So don't waste your characters in here. It doesn't count towards the 500. So just make it as brief as possible. So if you're doing a webinar on risk assessments, just put webinar and risk assessments. Okay. So we're going to scroll down and have a look here. So this is the change. So we've changed to 30 hours. Rather than those 6 activities over 12 months. So it goes up to 10 hours. So you can do an activity up to 10 hours. However, if you are doing a longer course, so for example, I'm going to a course for 3 days and I'm doing 5 hours on each day. So that would be 15 hours. But before I actually started doing that course, I did research into that course and I did pre-reading for 5 hours. And then I've also come back and implemented that into my role. So I came back from my training really excited that I'd learned all this new stuff. I've come back and brought it up in my team meeting. We've changed policies, done training within my workplace. So all of those hours are going to count towards my CPD. So what we suggest doing is breaking it down into 10-hour blocks so that you're actually getting, essentially, if you've done something like that, you could take 30 hours back for it. It's just about being mindful about how you break it up. So I would do my 5 hours on my pre-reading and then add another activity for day 1, for day 2, for day 3, and then everything I did afterwards. So how I implemented that and how it actually improved my learning. So you can break it down however you want and still get all of the hours that you've done on an activity, okay? So we're just going to pop in for ease today's webinar, and I'm just going to scoot over to my other screen to grab. So what we advise you do is copy and paste these headers in to the self-reflection box. Now, these are the questions that we look for in the quality side of the audit that you will have every membership year. So we want to know, what activity did you complete? Why did I choose to complete this activity? What did I learn? And how will I use the learning going forwards in my professional practice? And that already takes 186 characters from your 500, which we normally get a fabulous response from those members that I've looked at and thought, oh my goodness, how am I filling 500 in there? So our logic for not penalising you for doing popping these in and taking those characters is if you're writing in full sentence ever, it's full sentences anyway, you're going to use that many words to make what you've done as an activity into a sentence. This just makes it easier for you. And you're essentially just going to write a couple of sentences in each one and tell us just answer the question. So we hope this makes it, well, I do it in my CPD. And I've spoken to a lot of members that said this has actually made it a lot easier. So I can't preach this enough. Pop these in all of your records. And then you know when it comes to audit that you're automatically going to pass it because you've actually answered the questions that we've asked for. So we're just going to cheat a little bit here and pop something in for each one. So these would be your sentences that you're adding for each of the activities. You'll see the character counts going up at the bottom. And once we get to 500, as if by magic, this end date's going to populate. So we're just going to fill in our start date and our end date, and that's that bit done. So without actually having your 500 characters and your time in there, you're never going to get any further and your activity is never going to register properly. So make sure you've checked that every time, okay? So then this is how it links all together with that personal development plan that you formulated in the beginning. So each activity that you've completed, if it's relevant to one of those areas that you selected, either from the competency framework or you added in yourself, then what you're going to do is just simply mark this against that area. So I'm going to pop, even though I've completed the presentation skills, pop it against that one, okay? And then below this, you've got an upload evidence function where you can upload any documents that you may have or want to keep for yourself. So we don't require any form of evidence whatsoever. So if you tell me you've done something, I'm taking your word for it, that's enough for me. However, if you have got slides from a presentation you've been to, you want to keep something all together, and you use your CPD record as a storage function for that, by all means pop that in and keep it there with your reflection. Okay, so that's all that's for. And if you've been to a webinar, you can add a web link in there as well. So we're just going to mark this record as completed and save it. So you'll see here, this is the one we've just done. So we've done example 1. Our end date is there. We completed 1 hour of work and it marks it against this area of my personal development plan. And it's a full circle, so it's fully completed. Okay, so that's completely done. Now, we're just going to click on one of my example terrible ones here. So you'll see here that it's a half circle. So that means something that I've either popped that in with the intention of going back to it, or it's just not finished. So that's why it hasn't saved for me. So you'll see that I popped my 3 hours in, but I have no self-reflection whatsoever. And so we're just going to keep the finger on the key for a little while till we get to 500 characters. And then this is going to solve the problem for us. So it's always because you've either got no time in there or you haven't got 500 characters. So we're at 500 now. So I'll be able to add my start and my end date, mark it as completed. And then when we go back, you'll see now that that's completely done. So we've got a full circle there. So that's all the issue will be most of the time. Okay, if for any reason you ever log in and you save an activity that is actually prior to your CPD year, so we have this question quite a lot. I've saved this activity 10 times now. Where's it disappearing to? It's not disappearing. So if it isn't within these dates, the end date isn't within these dates here, it will simply drop into your previous CPD years. So don't ever panic that anything's gone missing. Just have a quick pop through and you'll probably find it exactly where it's supposed to be. So it will basically settle itself wherever the date lies within those. So you've never lost anything. It's just saved somewhere correctly. Okay. So we'll come back out of this. Okay, and I'll just go over the CPD resource library very quickly. So we have over 1,300 resources within the library. You can search by keywords, you can search by competency, so those areas you've selected in your personal development plan, or you can select a level. So we are going to look for something about communication, and we are looking at lead level. So you can look at all the resources that are available. Now, some of them will require you to log in again. This one in particular doesn't, but some of them that are within other systems will ask you to sign in again. Now, this is not your Blueprint login. So what we've done is essentially we've got the careers library that's in the other My IOSH login. So where you log in to go on the careers library, you go to renew your memberships, have a look how long's left of your membership. That login is the login you require to access the resources, because Blueprint essentially pulls that from our actual website. So that's what you need to log in with. If you have for any reason forgotten that password, I forget mine on a regular basis because I hardly ever use it. So if you have got that, contact us and we can reset that for you, and we can even reset it in line with your Blueprint password so they're all the same as well, if that makes that easier for you. So that's how you'd use the resource library. All you do is complete an activity in here. Then we'll go back to our CPD record, open a new activity, and then you just fill in what you've learned. So that's how you can use the resource library. Now, the resource library is not the only CPD that we accept. So we want you to do all of the CPD that you can do that works for you. So whether that's a YouTube video, whether you've read updated legislation, you've taken on a new project at work and you've had to do lots of learning on the job with that, you've trained someone in a toolbox talk recently, that's neurodivergent, and that's the first time you've ever done it, so you've had to upskill yourself to make sure you're delivering that in the best way possible. It's all CPD. So as long as you can say in that log, I've done this and I learned this and that's improved my professional practice by X, Y, and Z, that's CPD. So it's completely opened it up to absolutely anything that you possibly been completing can now be classed as your CPD. Okay, so we'll just go back to the main screen. And then we've got the ethical practice e-learning and assessments at the bottom. Okay, so like I said before, they're in 3 parts. If you are a member that's done them already, please do not touch them with a 10-foot barge pole until your magical pop-up appears, okay? Because we want to get it back in sync with your membership year. So when it is actually time for those to for you to retake them, it will pop up. So don't bother kind of trying to keep on top of them because they'll never line up again. So we've put that pop-up in. So ignore them until told otherwise for the moment. And we're hoping that by the time you renew, everything will be perfectly aligned, and then going forward, you'll be able to complete them at the same time every year, okay? So that's all there. There is some guidance here just above that will take you to one of our pages about how to completing it if you get stuck. There has been known to be some technical issues with these if you're using an iPad or something like that. So get in touch with us if you are having ongoing technical issues. We've got lots of hints and tips to get over it. So resetting cookies and cache and all those kind of things normally fix it. So get in touch with us rather than struggling, okay? So just at the bottom, we have got the accessibility toolbar here, which opens at the top. So there's lots of different settings you can change to make it more accessible for yourself. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. It's got overlays, changes text color. There's a ruler function, lots of different things to help.
Welcome to Blueprint.
Including that, which pops up every time you touch it. So if there is something that you do struggle with, and you can't find it on that toolbar, get in touch with us as well, because we've got lots of hints and tips with the Recite Me toolbar as well, and we're more than happy to help you with that. One of the other things I just want to remember before we go to the kind of question and answer session is, if you are a member that is really struggling with Blueprint, whether that be because you've got a neurodivergence, you've got an additional need, we do have a reasonable adjustments process. So just blueprint is very much kind of you have to fit into it to make it work. Now that's not the case. There's lots of different things and lots of adjustments we've made for members already. And that's kind of my main responsibility within the team. So I spend a lot of my days with people on teams trying to figure out how we can make adjustments and make this work for them. So if you are one of our members that is struggling and thinking this just isn't really going to work for me, there's lots of things that just I don't fit into. We've had some, just as an example, so I've got ADHD. I don't communicate in the same way as most people do. I've been called a bunny before, and that's fine, but I don't communicate in the same way. So I will always score lower on the competency framework on communication, maybe on the behavioural side of things, and I've scored lower there. So we have made adjustments for people in the past because it's just simply not necessarily a reflection of how they work, and some of the questions are worded in a way which wouldn't necessarily be the way you communicate if you do have a neurodivergence. We can completely kind of skip that self-assessment, or we found other ways to assess those things. So please don't sit in the background, get in touch with me, pop me an email at CPD inquiries. I'll be more than happy to go through that. If you've got even a visual impairment or dyslexia, we've also got lots of different things available for that too. So please reach out and get in touch. I'd much rather spend half an hour having a chat to you while we have a cup of tea and fix it all than you all struggle for a while. Okay. So that's the blueprint in a nutshell of how you're going to complete it. So we're just going to go back in to your personal development plan and have a little look. So you're going to work throughout the year and be relating the CPD activities you've completed to areas in your plan. So I'm just going to go through and hope that I've selected one that's actually relevant, which I haven't. So what will happen is, we've made a very bad example here, but you will have your relevant CPD activities will appear here, and you'll be able to mark it as completed. So you'll be able to see it with this one. So my presentation skills, and I've done these two CPD activities, and then I've simply gone on and marked it as completed, entered my end date, and you'll see here that it says completed. So that's the aim of the game, essentially, to work through your personal development plan goals and objectives and mark them off as completed. Now, whether you want to keep them on your record so you can see what you've worked on in the past, that's completely fine. If you one of the members of my team is absolutely obsessed with keeping hers nice and clean and tidy, so she gets rid of hers as she goes along. So whatever works for you, what we're going to do is remove the development area from your plan if that's what you like, or if you like me and want to keep it and see what have I actually worked on in the past, then by all means leave it there and just add something else to it when you feel ready to do so. So that's how you're going to keep that personal development plan up to date. You don't have to go back and redo that self-assessment that you did in the beginning. That's completely unnecessary. You can go back and reassess certain areas if you wish. So all you'll do to do that. So say, for example, I'd worked on communication this year, and I think, okay, I want to go back and see if I've actually moved those circles into where I want to get to. All you're going to do is go back onto here, click reassess. Okay. And we'll just click the communication. Type in your password, click save, and you'll be able to reassess in that area. Now, I'm not going to do it now because we'll have to go through the whole thing again and reassess communication. But all you're going to do, pop your password in, click save, and it will just repopulate that particular question set for you. You haven't got to sit through all of them all over again, okay? And that's completely optional if you wish to do that anyway. So that's how you're going to kind of monitor and use that personal development plan going forward. Okay. So I think, Anna, I'm getting to the end of my time anyway. So I'll stop there, but I'm more than happy to take any questions and can go back through the demonstration if possible, or needed to show you anything that I've missed.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlotte. That was really good, a really good whistle-stop tour of it, and I've certainly picked a couple of things up, and I've been using it for quite a while. So one of the things that I picked up was that I'm not currently doing is saving documents or web links where I've attended webinars that I've wanted to revisit. They're somewhere in the ether on my computer system, but actually having that all together is really useful, and somewhere to store stuff to go back to and reference. So thank you for that. I'll hand over to Rob. I think Rob's been checking the chat for some questions. So Rob, has there anything come up?
Yeah, I've got 3 questions so far. The first one is does the full blue circle mean it's complete?
So just to ask a further question, so a full circle in your personal development plan means that you're currently working at that level, so you've achieved that level. If we're talking about a full circle in the CPD activity log, then that also means that it's complete. So the answer to all the circle questions is if it's full, yes, it is complete.
Okay. Number 2, this is quite a good one actually. As if part of your CPD, you have developed an app, but it's only available on the corporate site, how do you evidence it?
Okay, so that's a really good example of us throwing evidence in the bin. So we don't need to see it. We will completely take your word for it. So that's why we've introduced that 500 character self-reflection. So we don't necessarily need to see proof of the app, pictures of it. What we need to see from you is in that 500 character self-reflection is what you've learnt from developing that app, what you've how it's improved your professional practice, and you've popped that in there for us to see. So from a CPD perspective, we're more interested in your learning and development journey than we are necessarily for you proving that you've done something. So there's no need to worry about evidence on anything that you ever complete. If you've told us you've done it, we know that you've done it. Just make sure that you've used those prompts. I'll make sure I send those to everyone afterwards for them to be distributed. But if you pop those prompts in, you know you've answered all the questions, and you know that you developing that app has actually counted towards your CPD.
Excellent. And I think you've answered the third one in what you've just said. Can you repeat where we can find the reflective statement questions?
Yes, so they are on some of our guidance documents. However, I'm going to, well, hopefully through our networks and branches team, distribute to you guys that have attended today all of our guidance documents, a little bit of a hints and tips thing that I've generated, and those reflective statements will all be sent to you. So you'll have those as well, so you can copy and paste them in going forwards.
And that's it for the questions. That's all the questions we've got.
I think that's the least questions I've ever had after doing that presentation. So fingers crossed that's all gone to plan.
I think that's a good sign, Charlotte. I think that's because you've covered everything really, really well. So thank you for that.
Brilliant.
So thank you everybody for your attendance today, particularly those that have been at pains in missing the football. So appreciate you coming today and joining us for this CPD. We'll close there. I'm just gonna an ask really to ask you to when you leave the presentation, you should be directed to a website with a survey. It'd be really helpful for you to give us your feedback about what you thought of the event and how informative it was for you. So I can see 1 or 2 comments in the chat already saying job well done, great and informative. So that's some really nice positive feedback. But if you could all do that, that would be great. Charlotte's going to provide some supporting documentation and also a set of presentation slides, which will circulate after the event. So if there's no more questions, I'll just check the chat one last time. No, I think not. So it'll just remain for me to say thanks again for attending. Thank you very much, Charlotte, for your presentation. And we'll see you at the next CPD event. Thank you.
Thank you.